Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the RepPath Podcast series. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic for a lot of you youngsters out there that are looking to break into the industry. And that is med device and pharma are not the same job. So please stop saying, I'm interested in device and pharma. When you get to a recruiter, okay, that is a red flag. And we're going to talk about why that is. But before we move forward, guys, as always, if you have any questions, please submit them into the chat from this moment on. Halfway through the show, James, our producer, will field those questions, so we'll be able to go over them. So please, any thoughts, it could be on topic or off topic. I'm okay with that. Obviously we want to stay on topic, but any questions, anything that's on your mind, please put that into the chat and we'll be able to take care of that throughout the call. Number two, as always, we are live on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're also on every podcast platform. And for any of you listening that are looking to break in, as always, guys, the RepPath Academy, each week we get more and more individuals that are graduating and finding ways into this industry. So to learn more, and we'll go over this at the end of the show, please go on the website, RepPath.com. You'll be able to see a lot of the commonly asked questions that you guys have, a lot of companies that we've helped place, and one of the most important things are the testimonials. So please go check out the website, go at the bottom. You'll see a couple of those success stories that we have there. And a lot of these guys are going to remind you of the situation that you're in, because we hear that all the time. But again, guys, please make sure you check that out. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me directly so you can learn more about the Academy. Okay. So
last thing, Joe, if they want to watch the replay, got to go to YouTube.
Sorry. As always.
Yeah, holiday weekend, Joe. I get it.
Yeah. Exactly. Too much of, I don't want to even say turkey, of everything. So my brain's a little foggy today. Thank you. So yeah, guys, covered, if anyone wants to see a copy of this podcast or any other material that we have, please go to YouTube and subscribe. It's 100% free, unfiltered medical sales coaching. So you could get all the content, guys. So please check that out. All right. So back to what we were saying. Pharma and device are not the same job. So when you go to a recruiter and say, yeah, I'm open to either one. Now that's a red flag to a recruiter, and definitely to a hiring manager, because that means that you didn't do your homework. If you say they're the same job, you did not do your homework, guys. You could be open to either. Okay. But you really have to have an understanding of what that means, because depending on which path you choose, it's going to be a completely different lifestyle. So I want to get rid of that myth that a lot of people think, I don't know, maybe I'll do pharma, maybe I'll do device. That's like saying to someone that, you know what, maybe I'll play football or maybe I'll play tennis. They're both sports, right? These are both medical sales. It's both under the medical sales umbrella, but they're completely different careers. So let's start, and we're going to talk about, really want to focus on what the actual day-to-day selling is like, because that's where you're really going to see how this is drastically different. One is a hardcore, get a purchase order, be live at a case, sales, close it. You could actually visualize, see the close, and that's device. And another one, pharma, is completely different. So let's start with device, and then we'll get into pharma. When you get into medical device, much different lifestyle, guys. For me, and I know I get people a little riled up, because if you're a pharma rep, a device rep, whatever you have a bias towards, I totally understand. I was both. So, you could disagree with me. That's fine. I think both are great careers. You could do really well in both. They give great benefits. It's exciting. You're selling to doctors. All that stuff is great. And that's similar. Okay. But the reality is, for me, I enjoy device more. That's just me. Okay. It's much more hardcore. Okay. So when you get into your first case, they'll tell you that you lose 10 IQ points right away. And I thought that was nonsense. And I know I've told this story before, but I that actually happened to me in my first case when I was at Boston Scientific. I was by myself. I already covered a good 20, 30 cases before them, but with another rep. Now I'm by myself. And when I had to open the packaging, sterile packaging, to give it to the doctor, I had a brain freeze and was like, holy shit, I just touched the sterile field. And these were a couple $1,000. These spinal cord leads. So now you have to, that's not good. I mean, if you touch the sterile field and you got to go back and tell your boss that, you look like a complete idiot, and then you also, if you do that a couple of times, they could start wondering if you're a right fit for the job. But I thought I did that. I did not. I just had a brain freeze moment. I did nothing wrong. And then everything turned out okay. But it really shows that your IQ level does drop. And that stuff is real because you're nervous, because you got a patient on the table, as real as can be. You're next to a doctor. You got a whole room of staff that's surrounding you. So they see your performance. Now, for me, that was the great part about it, because you can have a Me Too product and really stand out with the type of rep you are, because you can kick ass. You can be the most knowledgeable, the most comforting, not only to the doctor, but to the patient, and stand apart from the rest of the crowd by having a similar product. So for a lot of you device reps out there, yeah, of course it's cool. Or a lot of you reps that want to get into device, of course it's cool to have the revolutionary product that no one else has. And every hospital is dying to get you to sell them that product to them. We all want to be in that situation, guys. It's not real. It happens every so often, but there are a lot of Me Too products. The device, to me, is a great way to sell in that environment, right? Because you can really showcase you selling yourself. The more knowledgeable rep a doctor wants to work with, the rep that has that great OR etiquette a doctor wants to work with. A doctor does not want to work with someone that is just rambling on in a case, feeling that they have to talk so much just to sound important. That's a red flag. All right. So that's something that you do not want to fall into. So bottom line, for device, when you're in there, it's very real. So the process is, you don't get to that point just by walking in the door the first day and say, hey, Dr. Jones, what case do you have this week? I'm going to join you. Doctor's going to look at you like you have 10 heads. So you got to sell him or her, whoever it is. You got to sell them. So you're going to most likely say start at his office. And this is where pharma and device are similar. Typically a lot of doctors aren't going to meet you face to face the first time you walk in. So say you have to set up an appointment, a lunch or a breakfast. You set up that appointment, and now you get in front of the physician and sell your product. The big difference here, and this is where you guys that don't know the industry, you're going to see this right away. You're going to hear about getting yes to death. That's the biggest challenge in pharma. So if you're a device, if you're coming in and you're selling a device, if you want me to say yes, okay, Joe, I love what you have to say. I'm going to go use your product next. Great. Now, here's where you really close the physician, because you didn't close him yet. You think you did. Yeah, he said yes, that's great. But when is the case? Oh, the case, I have a spinal case next Tuesday, 9 a.m. at NYU. Perfect. You go, you meet with the doctor's scheduler. Typically, it would be someone in the office, and he'll say, talk to Joan, talk to Susan, talk to Bob, whoever the scheduler is. You go meet with that scheduler and say, hey, Dr. Jones is going to use me on that case next week, so please put me down in the book. So now you're booked for that surgery. Now you go in and do the case. And at the end of the case, everything goes well. You get your paperwork and drop it off at purchasing and wait for purchasing to give you a PO. PO is a purchase order. A lot of you that have been in the industry, of course, this is entry-level stuff. But for you that are trying to break in, this is what this call is really for, who it's really for. So now you leave, you're going to get a purchase order. You might get it that day, or you might have to follow up, because sometimes they'll say, hey, I should have the PO for you by the end of the week. Now you're chasing down POs. You're chasing down these purchase orders, which is annoying, but at least you know you made a sale. Okay? That was a sale. Here's the difference with pharma. Pharma, you're going to go in, you're going to schedule that appointment, maybe see the doctor right away, but again, not realistic on the first call. You set up a lunch, you sit down with the doctor, you tell him all about your drug and why he should be using it for XYZ disease state. And at the end, he goes, yep, I'm going to try it. I'm definitely going to give it a shot. I got a couple patients in mind. I'm going to try it on these couple patients. Now, here's where getting yes to death. That's the yes to death. And why is that yes to death? You go in a week from now. Hey, Dr. Jones, just following up. I know you said you'd give this drug a chance with some of these patients. Just following up to see if you had a chance to do that. Oh, Joe, yeah, I gave it to 3 patients last week. I didn't hear anything yet, but no news is good news. I mean, I've heard that 1,000 times from doctors, thousands of times. Hey, Joe, no news is good news. Now, I don't know yet if you made that sale. I still don't know if I made the sale, because the way you find out in pharma typically is your company will pay to get the script data from all the pharmacies around the country. So that data usually lags behind a month or a couple months sometimes. So you made the call today on December 1st. You might not know that until February, if that conversation you had today made an impact. That is hard. That is very difficult. Now, you're going to have managers, directors say, well, you could go to the pharmacy, ask that doctor, which pharmacy did you send that to? And then check with the pharmacist, maybe go in, bring them pizza or do a little lunch in there to meet with the pharmacist, let them know what you do. But you can't do that. There's hundreds of pharmacies in every territory. You can't do that for every pharmacy. A lot of these pharmacists, they don't have the time. You don't want us to be spending your budgets on pharmacies all around your territory. You just don't have enough budget dollars. So you can possibly find out, but the reality is you're not going to be able to find out. You're going to have to wait for that data to come in, and there's a lag time. So in 2 months, you could realistically be calling on that doctor 10, 12 times. You could be in there once a week, listening to, yep, I love it, Joe. Great. Now you could ask more questions to probe, something simple. What dose do you like given the best? What's the most common dose? Now, when you get doctors, well, I kind of just use whatever. Red flag. That guy's bullshitting you guys. If they don't even know the dose right off the top of their head and they've given this out to a couple people, that's typically a red flag that they never gave it to anyone yet. But you could start asking, like, who are the types of patients? Who are you giving this to? Please, just so I can tell other physicians, because you're having so much success with this. And there's ways to see if they are for real, but you don't know 100% until that data comes out. So this is, to me, one of the biggest differences between pharma and device. It creates a totally different playing field and environment. And is that something you want to do? Because device is challenging in different ways. You're going to have any lunch, any dinner, any time with your friends, birthday, any occasion. Odds are you're going to have to miss some of those in device. I very rarely missed anything in pharma. They're going to say you're working 9 to 5. You're not even, or 8 to 5. You're not even going to work that much, guys. You're just not. And this is where I get in trouble being too honest. But you can't go, if you do the math, they want you to see 10 to 12 doctors in a day. A lot of these doctors, you walk in, you knock on the door, you see the receptionist, they go, Joe, sorry, he doesn't see reps, but I'll leave the material and then I'll give it to the doctor. You're in and out in 5 minutes, sometimes 30 seconds. So you can't do that. You could do that 50 times a day if you really wanted to, between 8 and 5. So a lot of reps, once they know their territory, you also know Dr. Jones has never seen me in 6 months. Are you going to keep calling on that doctor every week? No, you got to be smarter with your time and go where you can get the business. And that's what that first 6 months to a year takes, is really understanding your territory. And when you do that, that's when you become a great rep and you really have a master that I'm going to focus on these 20 doctors. These are my top guys. Then I'm going to focus on these next 20 to get them to grow. And then here are my 20, reaches that they really haven't given me time. They're using the competition. And then you shrink down, say, a 200 physician territory to 50 or 60, but you're not going to be in cases. You're not working after 5 because the office is very few are open after 5. So you're not going to go to a doctor's office where it's closed. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So your lifestyle is going to be completely different. So I want you guys to understand that you're going to have more freedom in pharma. That's one of the big draws of pharma. You get the company car, you get a good pay. There's very few reps besides some rare disease reps. I mean, I know a bunch of them that are making 300, 400, 500,000 a year, but that's rare. Excuse me. That's why they call it rare disease. But seriously, when you're the typical pharma job, they're going to give you a little bit of a higher base pay, but their bonuses, they really cap. And even when they say they're uncapped, you never can make the kind of money that you can in device, but you could still do really well. So again, guys, when you're going into this, you need to know all this. The average rep, both pharma and device, everyone included, makes $178,000 a year. That's base and bonuses, commissions, all in, total OTE. Okay. That pharma overall, you're going to see more reps in device that are making the 250, 300 plus than you are in pharma. So if you're okay making that 150 to 200, that's a great living. The pharma could be the route for you, because you're going to have a much more of your personal time, freedom, be able to do what you want, go to your kids' games, get to the gym, whatever it is, meet your friends for golf at 2:00 on a Friday. I mean, you're going to be able to do all those things. Device, you can't do that when a doctor calls and say, hey, Joe, I just added a case on tomorrow at 3 p.m. And you know what it means? That means case probably won't start till 5 or 6. Now the case goes 6 to 9. You get out of there after whatever you have to do. You can get out of there 10, 11 o'clock at night. I've had this happen to me dozens and dozens of times. So that's where you got to understand which lifestyle do you want. But it could become very rewarding. Now, I just did a post yesterday on LinkedIn comparing the two. So if any of you guys see that, you see that for me went viral because a lot of people are passionate on both sides. So they're giving their opinions. And I got a lot of great feedback from that. But that's the point of this call, is that the whole point is I want to educate everyone that you guys have an understanding that do not say I'm open to either one. You got to have an opinion, right? That's you do, because they're two totally different things. If you think they're the same, you didn't do enough research. Again, you don't say, I'll play tennis or football. So look like you have 10 heads. Which one do you like more and why? And it's okay to say, I actually am interested in pharma because of X, Y, and Z, but I'm also interested in device because of X, Y, and Z. And you need to know why. If you say I want to get into device because of the freedom to be on my own and have a flexible schedule, I know I wouldn't hire you. That means you actually don't know what you're talking about. If you said that for pharma, okay, at least I know that you know what you're getting yourself into, but understand that. And one of the things that gets people upset a lot, but it's a reality. I speak to reps and managers all around the country every day, and I'm going to contradict myself by saying this, but here's why. If you're looking to go from pharma into device, the longer you're in pharma, the harder it is to get into device, because a lot of device managers, they don't want pharma reps. I think there's good reps that are pharma reps. There's bad reps that are pharma reps. There's good device reps. There's bad device reps, but they look at it as, you don't understand this lifestyle. You don't know what it's like to be in an operating room for 10 hours a day. And then, maybe not get home at night. If you have kids, that's a real challenge. If you have to pick up your kids at school every day. Device, you're not going to be able to do that. Pharma, you probably will. So that's why they're weighing these things. Believe me, if you have someone that's a single parent and has 4 kids and has to pick them up from school every day, and you want this device job that I typically have reps that work until midnight, 2-3 days a week, I can't hire that person, because they really just can't, they wouldn't be able to do this job, or unless they tell me how they're prepared to have people take care of the kids and do all those things. So that's why I want to make sure you guys understand that, so you don't say some of these things in an interview where you scare off a hiring manager. So the whole takeaway is do your research. All right. So if you want to get in, though, getting back to going from pharma to device, if you want to get in, the easiest way is applying for jobs that you have the relationships with whatever therapeutic area the opening is with. So if you're in pharma and you're selling a cardiac drug and you have hundreds of cardiologist relationships that are very strong, I'm going to focus on cardiac device jobs where I can walk in there and say, hey, listen, even though I didn't sell device, I'm good friends with Dr. Jones, Dr. Smith, Dr. Wilkins, Dr. Williams. I'm very tight with them. Now that's music to their ears, because they know that you could come in there and make an impact right away. But if you're going to go have years of cardiology experience in pharma and then apply to ortho jobs in device, why? Why would they take you on? That's what you're going to get, because they have a line of people with device experience that they might not have ortho, but they know what it's like to be in an operating room. And you could say, oh, Joe, I'll learn anything. Okay. Well, what happens when I'm already credentialed? And this is some of the things you guys need to know about. If I'm credentialed and you're going against me for the job, I'm already credentialed throughout Atlantic Health System and NYU, whatever the hospital IDN. Now, first off, if you guys don't know what that is, again, that's something you need to know. So you got to be vendor credentialed first. So some of these reps could already be credentialed at all these different institutions. You're not even credentialed yet. So during training, they got to make sure that you're up to speed and you're credentialed. You don't even know, some reps don't even know what that means. They don't even know what it's like to walk into a hospital and have the hospital say, sorry, if you're not credentialed, you can't do this case. So if you're not set up that way, that's a time loss. But a lot of these device reps have already been through that. So it makes it easier for the company to say, yes, let's hire that person. They're already credentialed here. They could start working right away. So that's something you need to know. Also the pressure. Every sales job is pressure. Again, this could vary. Some of you could disagree. All my device roles were much more hardcore, much more cutthroat. They're not going to tolerate month after month, quarter after quarter of you not hitting your number. They're not. You're going to be on a PIP. And for some of you who don't know what that is, it's a performance improvement plan. So you do not want to be on a PIP. That's a bad thing. So, but in pharma, they're typically a little bit more, not laid back, but they're not as quick to look to get rid of someone like they are in device. Device is much more cutthroat. And you're as good as your last sale, guys. And that's pretty much in any sales job. But because you won a President's Club last year, don't think that gives you a 3-year, I could do what I want and really shit the bed on my number. In this company, I'm a President's Club winner. They don't care. After that, you win that, they're going to give you the celebration. You're going to be brought up stage with the cheerleaders and the fireworks and all that craziness. You're going to go to Aruba, wherever the trip is. You're going to be a stud for a couple of weeks. Then it's back to work, and no one cares that you're a President's Club winner the next year. You got to go out there and perform and keep growing. So it gets challenging. Do you want that every day? Some of you might say yes. Guys, it wears on you. When you're in operating rooms too, some of you say, I love that. I want that thrill. I want that rush. What happens when you have a procedure scheduled, the patient is on the table, the doctor is there, all of a sudden they come back with blood work that's no good. Can't do the procedure. It's happened to me. I had to hit my number the last day of the surgery, of the quarter. Surgery didn't go off. They had to book it the next Tuesday. I wind up falling short of my number. Now, of course, it sucks. I did everything on my job that I could do, but unexpected things happen. Does the company care? Nope. They'll tell you, well, how come you didn't hit your number? You shouldn't just barely hit your number. You should be at 105 or 110% because the unexpected things happen. So you should plan for that. This is the kind of answer you're going to get because this is what I got. They're not going to care about that. In pharma, just for me, I'm not saying they're not going to care about not hitting numbers. They still want you to hit the number. It was always less intense. So if some of you want that, that might be the route for you. When you're in an operating room and things aren't going right, and you have to sit there with a steady hand and maintain calm, cool. In your head, you're like, I have no idea what the hell's wrong with this system. How come it's not turning on? And you have to troubleshoot and be calm. And a doctor's yelling at you. Joe, what the hell are you doing? Joe, this patient, come on. We've been sitting here. Let's go. And this happens, guys. Now, what do? You got to be cool. You can't say, doctor, give me a second. I'm freaking out right now. They'll never use you again. So you got to be cool and maintain that. That's not for everyone. That's stressful, But again, I don't want to make it seem like it's all doom and gloom because when those cases do go well and you got out of a tough jam, there's no better feeling than having the doctor afterwards go, Joe, thank you. That was a tough one. You really helped me there. Thanks a lot, buddy. And now you're talking to the doctor when you come in, the doctor starts introducing and talking to himself. Joe, stop calling me Dr. Jones. Call me Bob. You will get that. That is a big difference. Now, pharma reps, of course, there's certain doctors out there that'll call me by my first name, but there's more that in my experiences, that I got much more respect from physicians because I was side by side to them in those cases where they would, they talk to me on a first name basis. And then there were some doctors, didn't matter. I could have saved their family member's life on the table that day. They're still Dr. Jones, which is fine. Whatever they want you to call them, you call them. But it does feel, some of you might say, John, I don't care if I got to call a doctor or call him Bob. It doesn't matter to me. I agree. I understand what you're saying, but it still feels pretty good knowing that these doctors look at you almost as a colleague. Because when you really kick ass in those operating rooms and are really educating doctors and coming up with solutions to challenging cases, number one, they're going to continue to use you. So you're going to see it in your bonus check. Your numbers are going to go up. But also, you're going to see that you do get more respect. And it feels good. So I'm not saying that that's the main reason, but just a couple of thoughts, guys, before you dive into this. Give me one sec. So again, getting back to deciding, you got to decide, do you like that instant gratification when it comes to closing, where you walk in there and you leave with a case booked? That is a great sign. You made a sale that day. You're going to make a sale. That's a great sign. Or are you okay with not knowing, going in there, constantly educating doctors where it could be weeks, months at a time, where you still don't know if what you're doing is making an impact? Because here's a challenge that most of you are not going to see on the pharma side. You're with the hiring manager. Excuse me. Now, hiring managers, there's a lot of great managers, and there are a lot that are a pain in the ass, guys. And on the pharma side, you're going to get managers going, Joe, okay, Dr. Jones, I see you called on him 6 times in the past month and a half, and there's no numbers. And you did 3 lunches. What the hell are you doing? And now you have to actually be willing to, know that what you're doing is working. Like, no, hey, listen, Tim, this guy, trust me, he's committed. He said that he already has 10 patients on it. He's told me about the patients. He's told me about the patient profile. He knows the dosing inside and out. Ask him any question. Trust me, but you don't know. So now you're going to have this person really busting you to see the numbers, and they're not there because it takes time. So those are tough conversations, guys. When you're not there, it's hard to really explain that until you're in that situation, because some of these guys don't want to hear it. They're like, Joe, all I see no numbers. And you have dollars spent on this doctor over and over. So you cross your fingers, because believe me, guys, that 10, even if he's using you, and now only 3 scripts show, now what? Now you're pissed off because you thought 10 scripts were coming, and now only 3 are coming. And sometimes it's only because he exaggerated, and sometimes some of the data isn't tracked by the pharmacies. So there's some pharmacies, and you have to make sure you know this too, when you're in the interview process. That's a question. Are there any pharmacies where the company does not get the data from? And this could happen, guys. For instance, say you're in New York and they don't get the data from Dwayne Reed. You know how many Dwayne Reeds there are in Manhattan? I mean, they're everywhere. So just say I'm just making this up right now, but say you can't get the data from them and all your doctors send to Dwayne Reed's. Now, my old companies would tell me, Joe, get them to send to another pharmacy. Good luck having that conversation, guys. Excuse me. Doctors don't want to do extra work just to make you happy. I mean, they have real things going on in their practice, real lives on the line. Now they got to think, oh shit, Joe's company doesn't track at Dwayne Reed, even though that patient's going to get the medication, it's going to do the job, but I got to make sure I send it to another pharmacy. The doctor's not going to do it, guys. It's very rare for a doctor to do that. You got to have a very good relationship, because the patient, don't forget, is on the other end going, Dwayne Reed's next to my house. I will not go anywhere else. They are not going to change it for you. So that is a real situation that could come up. So you want to ask that question during the process. It also shows that these are the questions, guys, that shows that you put your research in and you know what you're talking about. That's a real question. That means I actually spoke to Pharma Rep. I know what the real challenges are. That's why I'm interested, or that's why I'm not interested. I don't want to deal with, doctors writing scripts that aren't even tracked, and I'm putting all this work in. I want to receive a hardcore PO. I want to get the commitment from the doctor. I don't want him to yes me to death. That's why I want device. Now, if you say that to me, how much more compelling is it for me to want to hire you than just saying it? Like we said at the beginning, yeah, I'm interested in either one. Now you have a little bit more insight. It sounds crazy to say I'm interested in either one. So make sure you're doing all this research, guys. Make sure you're reaching out to me. I mean, these are the things that we talk about and we teach in the RepPath Academy. We're going to make sure that you know what you're asking. You know what you're getting involved in. We're going to teach you all this, not this quick little hour, peripheral explanation or showing the difference between pharma and device. We're going to really get into it. So when you get in there, that hiring manager or that recruiter or that HR person goes back and goes, no, this guy really knows what he's getting himself into. So on that note, I'm going to take a little break. James, do we have any questions from the crowd?
We do. We got Steven Topin. He wanted to flag something real quick, so let's bring it up. Just to flag something, a lot of what you're describing sounds like the ortho rep world specifically. And yeah, if we're only talking ortho, you're not wrong. That role can be super on call and intense, but medical device is way bigger than ortho. There are plenty of other specialties where the workflow is totally different and you're not living on call 24/7. I've worked both device and pharma, and I've seen that contrast firsthand.
Absolutely. I agree with all that.
Cool. We got
again. We're his name is Steven
Topin.
Yeah. So Steven, I totally understand. I agree with you. Again, I have to give generalities. I can't give every job opening and then break it down because you're right. There are differences. Every job isn't 24/7. Every job isn't on call. I'm just saying overall, lifestyle overall, these are some of the challenges that you're going to see in device that you're not going to see in pharma.
William Patrick Burns adds, right, pharma works from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., med device 6 till 10 p.m.
Yeah, now, again, I appreciate that too. Now, of course, there's going to be 50 on here that says, what is he talking about? That's not true. He's just giving a generality. Now, overall, my takeaway from that statement, which I agree with, you're going to work more in device than you are in pharma. Some reps in device, if you have a case and you don't have coverage, you have to go to that case. In pharma, you cannot show up to that office. A patient comes in, the doctor's just prescribing a drug. They don't need you there to prescribe the drug. So you're going to get reps working less than they are on the device side. Give me 1 second, James. Just pause for a sec.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you have any more questions, bring them into the chat. We'll get them ready for you while Joe is taking care of something.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So,
Perfect.
So that's the takeaway is you're going to work longer in device than you are with pharma. And some days, I know some reps that they don't go in 5 days a week. Again, if you're hitting your number, guys, most companies don't give a shit what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. There's companies that are tracking every little thing. Do you really want that lifestyle? If you really love the job, you're not going to care. But for me, I always cared about, is the person performing? If they're performing, great. They're doing everything legally. They're doing everything ethically. I don't care. Because some of you don't have to work as long as someone else to get a job done. Some of you do work smarter. But again, it's all about your numbers. If you're not hitting your numbers, if you're dragging behind, you're going to get shit from no matter what manager that is in pharma or device. So just be cognizant of that. But at the end of the day, I believe that was William that was saying, you're going to work longer in device.
We have Austin Kelly. How would you compare the diagnostic world more like pharma?
How would I? Yes, I would. And so that's a great question. So diagnostics is in between. It's not pharma and it's not device. So you're going to go in there. So when we talk about diagnostics, what does that mean? That's selling testing, urine drug testing, blood testing, MRI testing, whatever that is. Now, I have a buddy that owns MRI facilities throughout New Jersey, or used to own facilities there. His job, his team's job, was to go into doctors' offices, talk about their facilities and what advantages they have over the other facilities. So you want, when a patient needs an MRI, you want that doctor to send that patient to your facility. And then they're going to pay you a commission based on the number of MRIs that come into that facility for that month or that quarter, right? So that's an example of diagnostic sales. Another example, urine drug testing. Urine drug testing, you either go to rehabs, to pain specialists. That these are guys that are giving patients, they're testing your urine to make sure that they're taking the proper medications that they're prescribed. And then when they bill the insurance companies, that lab will receive a payment based on whatever they bill. Secondly, you're going to get a commission based on those tests that they bill for. Okay, so that's how you're going to get paid. So it's a little different. It's not pharma. It's not device where you're going to be covering cases and you can't work. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. Miguel's killing me, James.
I knew it was Miguel, that sneaky guy. You can't even hear him.
Yeah. So, guys, sorry. I have a little dog that is crying for a toy in the background. So he's good.
You can't really hear him, so you're good.
Good. Okay, great. So again, getting back to diagnostics, it's not device where you're going to be in operating rooms all night long. Okay. So typically you're going to be much more of an asset or a part of that practice because you're working, more hands-on with their staff. There's more prep work with understanding the tests, understanding the results that you're following up. They could say, hey, Joe, I have a specimen number 62351. I haven't gotten the results yet. So you're working with more of the nursing staff, whoever's clinical in that office. And it could be, they could contact you. You could call on a doctor's office every day. You could be in that office because they need something from you. You're not going to see that as often in pharma or device. They're not going to need you there every day in pharma. All right. So there's much more interaction with the staff. So, but you're also not calling in offices, in hospitals, sitting in surgeries. So it's kind of in between. If you want, though, more of a 9-to-5 lifestyle, then diagnostics is a fit there. If you're more for the open-ended, I don't care. I'm here to, because I love the job and I'm here to make money, then device is the route. Because device and diagnostics, you can both make, those are where the reps I know that are making up to 7 figures. Guys, I'm sorry, man. Sorry. Okay. All right. So anyway, bottom line, the potential to make the most amount of money is definitely a toss-up between device and diagnostics. So if you can get a really good territory and really crank out volume, you could make those 7-figure numbers. Again, it's rare, but you have the potential in either one of those.
Miguel wants to be the host of the show today.
He's crying right behind me. Even if you don't hear him.
No, we can't hear. I can't hear him.
Scratching my foot. That it's like I can't.
You can't focus. Yeah. Matt Luvano. This is such great information. Everything I'm seeing in device is spot on to what you are saying.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Joe, how different is the travel between the two industries?
It depends. Now, typically, pharma companies, again, I got to say typically, you're going to get a couple a couple of counties, maybe half the state, maybe a whole state. But they usually, and that's usually in the East Coast, where it's highly populated areas, you're going to get less of a size territory. Now, if you go west, typically, when you're out in Colorado, Idaho, Montana, you got to have reps that cover 2-3 states. So what the companies try to do, they try to base it and make it fair for every territory. So they'll take the script data that they'll pay for and say, okay, here's 300 physicians in the West Coast that they'll look up, say, cardiologists, because you have a cardiology drug in pharma. And they'll say the script potential is X. So, but here's 300 physicians that we're going to create a territory with. Now, if you take those 300 physicians in Manhattan, you could get a territory literally in 30, 40 blocks that you can have all those doctors in that area. So I knew a lot of my Manhattan reps, they didn't even have a car. They took the subway and taxis to every office, or they walked, because they, some only covered, the 40s into the 60s in Midtown. I mean, these are real territories. I had guys out west that covered 4 states. So the whole goal is to make it fair. But I would say overall, device typically is more travel than pharma is. All right. It's because sometimes they can have 2 reps. Like we used to have 2 reps out in Long Island and then had 1 rep for the whole state of Florida. It depends. They're not going to, a lot of these companies on the device side typically are going to see the business develop first and then place reps in there. They're not going to keep adding reps. Of course, when they do launches, they have to put reps in at a launch, but they're not going to just keep throwing more reps in. Pharma typically goes in more where they have the territories mapped out. They're going to put reps in these spots, and then if they do grow, then they can always add more. But typically what I've seen in device, they don't just throw rep. They want the business to grow first, and then they could potentially split a territory and make it 2. But I would say if you're worried about travel, you're worried about all that, pharma typically has less travel than device.
Joe, if someone is deciding between pharma and device, what are the top 3 questions you think they should ask themselves before committing?
Well, the first one, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Do you love that pressure, that stress on a daily basis? Then you're going to want device. Do you want more freedom? Then you're going to want pharma. So, I mean, for me, those are, there's many more, but you need to have an understanding, if this is the lifestyle for you. So which one matches to your lifestyle? That's number 1. Number 2, do I want the more stressful work environment, or do I want more of a relaxed day-to-day, where I don't have patients' lives in front of me on a table, where my decisions could make an immediate impact? I'm not trying to be so over dramatic here, guys. Again, there's still a physician in the room. The patient is still that doctor's patient. At the end of the day, anything goes wrong, that doctor is responsible. But you're still a part of this, and it gets real quick. So do you want that? And then you could get into more specifics, about the money, about the actual product. Because another big question I would ask, is the product reimbursed or is it covered? So you want, if it's a device, what GPOs is that device on? Now or what GPOs, is your product on? So if you're on Premier, but you're not on HPG, believe me, I did consulting with companies that you learn the hard way. If you're a rep in New Jersey, there's a lot of HPG, which is one of the big GPOs throughout New Jersey. So if your company is only on Premier, another GPO, and not on HPG, the doctors can't even use your product until you're on that GPO. So that's a big problem. You could be the best salesman in the world. Doctor goes, Joe, I love everything you're saying. I think it's amazing. I think it will change my patients' lives. But I can't use you until you guys are on that GPO, because That's who this hospital is a part of. We're a part of HPG. So that's something you want to know. What GPOs is it on? And then if you're on the pharma side, you have to make sure that the product is on formulary at XYZ hospital. So if you're calling on them, you need the P&T committee to meet to get your product approved to get on formulary. In device, you need the VAC committee, the value analysis committee. So value analysis committee is device. P&T is pharmacy and therapeutics committee for pharma. You need these bodies to approve either your device or your drug so doctors can use it. So you want to ask those questions. Is it on formulary if it's a drug, or is it on the GPO, or what GPOs are you a part of when it comes to the device? So I know there was more than 3 questions, but these are just quick thoughts coming off the top of my head. So apologize.
Well, that was a good answer, Joe. What skills are mandatory for device that pharma reps often lack?
I think what I've seen with pharma reps versus device reps, pharma reps, you guys will notice this at national sales meetings. And again, this is nothing against either one, but pharma reps are more like friendly. I don't want to say friendlier, but they have they don't have that like edge to them that I see with a lot of device reps. Device reps to me they're a little bit more hardcore. They have that more of a personality because it is more of a, sink or swim type of environment. A lot of the pharma reps for me, it seemed more, just not as intense, because it's not, the day-to-day is not as intense. When you're in an operating room, it gets intense. When you're calling on a doctor, telling the doctor to prescribe something, excuse me, he's got 50 different options sometimes. So it's not really the end of the day. Your drug is very similar to another drug he uses. And let's be real, he's using it because you asked him 10 times. He did the research and saw, this is a very safe drug. I'll try this. So that to me, it's that I seen an edge because of the environment that they're in with the device rep versus a pharma rep.
We have, if someone's new to sales entirely, which path is more realistic for them to start with?
Device. No questions asked. If you are a young college grad or someone that wants to get into this industry and you don't have at least a year of B2B sales experience, do not even bother looking at pharma. If you don't have a 4-year degree, do not even bother looking in pharma. Again, I'm sure someone out there is saying, hey, Joe, my cousin got hired by XYZ pharma company, didn't have a degree. Sure, I'm sure they're out there. Guys, 99.9%, they want a college degree. You need your bachelor's in pharma, and you need at least 1 year of B2B sales experience. And then you can break into the industry. Device is different. We just placed an outstanding young rep who got a job at Arthrex before she even graduated. Outstanding, individual. I don't want to say her name for privacy, but she graduated from Penn State, got the job offer in April last year, graduated in May, started June 1st with Arthrex, and did not, she was a college grad, but, outstanding rep, outstanding candidate. But if she applied to pharma, it'd be a different story because they have more handcuffs on their, what they can do than some of these device companies. And then to take it a step further, a lot of the distribution companies, again, like an Arthrex, where they don't have all the red tape that the bigger companies do, where they have to hire X and Y and they have to have this background. A lot of times it's more of the mom and pop, like, hey, I love this rep. I thought they do great. Let's hire them. So that's the big difference between the two. But if you want to break in and you don't have sales experience or a 4-year degree, you're going to have a very tough time going the pharma route. I suggest everyone go device, distribution, diagnostics. Those are the routes because they're more willing than pharma to hire.
What about those who have a ton of B2B sales experience? Should they stay away from pharma as well, or is that okay if they don't have a degree?
Should definitely apply.
Even if they don't have a degree?
If they don't have a degree, no. It's tough.
Even with the experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's pretty, and I don't agree with it, guys. I mean, I went to college. I got a 4-year degree. I don't care what your stance is on college. I've seen reps that didn't have a college degree that they kill it. So I don't think that companies, I think they should get rid of that, especially companies where you have reps that have had medical sales jobs and they're 45 years old. They've been in the industry 20 plus years. Now they never got their 4-year degree, but they've been in the industry forever. And now you got this company that says, I can't hire you because HR says we need a 4-year degree. To me, that's idiotic, but companies still do it. But at the end of the day, if someone could sell, they could sell. So I don't think it should be a requirement, but if you have that sales experience and not a 4-year degree with pharma, again, I'm sure the exceptions out there, but most of them are not going to hire you.
Which role actually requires you to sell the most, like real selling, not relationship maintenance?
Device. Definitely device. Because it's just, again, anything where you're leaving, you don't get paid until you get a PO. So for you guys that don't know this, you can have a case. So perfect example. We're coming towards the end of Q4. So this is where you'll get a lot of reps. This is excuse season for reps. I did it too. Holiday time. Oh, you tell your manager it's slow. Everyone's on vacation. Doctors aren't doing surgeries. They're pushing it off to next quarter. You're going to hear a lot of that shit. Guys, don't put yourself in that situation where you're trying to hit your number and you got to make up those excuses. No manager wants to hear that nonsense. But besides that, when you are getting towards the end of the quarter like we are now, you could do, and I've had this, I could do a procedure December 12th, say. That's not this Friday, next Friday. Everything went perfectly well. They don't have the purchase order for me. So the procedure happened. I give now my list of products that were used in that case. I leave the purchaser the bill. Essentially what you're doing. So picture if you're a waiter or a waitress, at the end of the meal, you give the customer the bill. That's what you're doing at the end of a case. Now, for them to pay you, they need to give you a purchase order. That's the number. So it's different in every hospital. It could be PO, number sign, 1034, whatever their number system is. It could be letters and numbers. But until you submit that PO to your company, technically, you didn't make a sale yet. So I could do that case December 12th, and then December 31st, I'm freaking out going to XYZ hospital to meet with Sharon, the purchaser, to get that purchase order. Because if I don't submit it, it doesn't get counted to my sales. And guess what happens December 31st? Sharon's not in. Now what? Now you essentially didn't make that sale this quarter because she doesn't come back till January 3rd. And now it's actually a sale for your next quarter in 2026, Q1, but it didn't count in this quarter. That's a nightmare, guys. So understand it. You didn't get paid by doing the case. It didn't count yet. You need that purchase order. And sometimes it takes some time to get that number because you're chasing after them. Joe, I'm busy right now because they're covering cases too. They're doing a lot of inventory stuff. You'll see a lot of times like, Joe, I don't have it yet, or right now is a bad time. When should I come back? Come in next Thursday. You go in next Thursday. She's in a case or she's in a meeting, whatever it is. And you all of a sudden you're getting nervous, like, shit, I got to get that purchase order or I'm not going to hit my number. And when you're talking sometimes with $30,000, $40,000 implants, it could be a substantial part of your number from going from, hitting your number, hitting 105% to plan to hitting 87% to plan. Now that looks drastically different in rankings and everything else because you just couldn't get one purchase order. Now say you have 5 of them out there that you're trying to collect before the end of the quarter. It could demolish your number. So again, not saying this to scare people, but this is the reality of the device side that you have to get that done because the sale doesn't happen just because the case happens. James?
If you put a top pharma rep in a device role tomorrow, what would be the first thing they'd struggle with? Sorry, I was on mute.
Top rep or not, I think if you're not used to that environment in the operating room, that's something that people struggle with the first time. It's because the best reps are calm. The best reps aren't jumping up and down going, like this at the operating, and you'll see this. You'll see reps at the operating table, like looking around. They're always saying, hey, Dr. Jones, by the way, our system can do this. Dr. Jones, you also should be aware of this. Hey, Dr. Jones, doctors don't want to hear that. The best reps are cool. They're calm. They're in control. Everything is, if something bad happens, that's okay. Well, here, let me walk you through that. I want you to take this instrument, do this, do that. And that's what a cool, calm rep does. So if you're not used to that environment, you could be a 10-time President's Club winner. It doesn't matter. Pharma, diagnostics, distribution, whatever else you were in. If you're not used to that environment, you're going to struggle at first. It's nothing to do against the individual. It's just experience. But over time, if you did well in one, you could prove that you could do well in another. But it's going to take time, because that's the toughest part. When you're in there and it's a patient on the table and it's real, now your product is being used and it doesn't turn on and you have no clue. Has that ever happened in pharma? Did they ever give a drug and the drug didn't turn on? No. I'm sure, of course, there's been drugs that didn't work for patients, but you're not there when that happens. Now they're looking at you going, truly, the whole staff stops. The doctor stops. They look at you. And some of the doctors could be very nasty at this point. They start screaming at you. And a lot of good companies, because we got trained really, really well at Boston Scientific. Outstanding company, outstanding training process, because they would teach you, then they would test you, then they would test you under pressure. So they would create a lot of situations in the operating room that things would go wrong. And it was horrible because you were stressed out. But these are things that they're preparing you that really happen in real life. So no one, their first time, is ready for that. But the more that you get experience, the cooler you get, the better you get. And then you're able to navigate that. But that's going to be the most difficult part for a pharma rep.
Joe, how different are the relationships with doctors? Is one more transactional and the other more collaborative?
I mean, I had I called on the same doctors that used my drug. Back in the day, I was selling Avinza at a company called Organon. And Avinza was a Schedule II, just like OxyContin. It was a once-a-day pain med, great drug. And I had a lot of good relationships. Then when I went to Boston Scientific and started selling spinal cord stim, now I'm working directly with them and also their patients. So their patients, they can make or break you. Now, stim is a little different. It's a little unique in the device space. There's very few jobs that have that much of a heavy patient interaction. But the good thing about that is when you do well, guess who's calling that doctor saying how great Joe is? And when they hear that over and over and over again, they're actually going to start using you more and more. All right. So that to me, where my relationship with the doctors went to another level. I have some to this day that I could text because of my relationships there, that they would respond in seconds, because we had a lot of cases together. We had a lot of patient interaction. There were things that they would ask me, hey, Joe, I know it's last minute, but Mrs. Jones just showed up. She needs a reprogramming on her stimulator. Guys, I'm 2 hours away. That's okay. She said she'll wait, but can you come here tonight, after you're done? And I'd meet at a hospital or the office and meet that patient to make sure that patient's happy. You're not going to do that in pharma. So when you do those things, your rapport with the doctor and the patient is going to get to another level. And that's why it's, for me, those relationships, it wasn't even close once I started calling on device with those doctors.
Last question for you, Joe. How much device sales is actually being in the OR versus selling outside the OR?
So it depends on the company. Okay. But overall, we'll just pick, I'll pick my role at Boston Scientific. You don't, to make your number and to really grow your business, you don't want to be in operating rooms all day long. Good territories where companies are more well-established, they'll have a clinical support team. Excuse me. That's where you'll have associates, clinical specialists that'll do those cases, because I would like to do the first trial with a new doctor or the first couple to get that doctor comfortable with our system. But once the doctor knows our system inside and out, I can't be there every day. But that's the toughest part, is that a lot of reps, they're afraid to give up control, or not be at that case, because then Dr. Jones will be pissed that you're not there. Yeah, but meanwhile, you can't scale your territory. You can't grow it unless you're out there hunting. So ideally, you want to be in front of doctors selling your system and getting more users than just babysitting your top doctors, because you're never going to be able to grow that way. And a lot of reps struggle with this because the doctor says, Joe, you're going to be here next week, right? And you're like, absolutely. Now you have to get that other clinical or that other individual where the doctor is comfortable with them, because then you're never going to be able to grow. So overall, you're not selling face-to-face with doctors as much as you think. Most reps think in device, whatever it is, they're covering cases, yes, but they're selling, say, 50% of the time. There's a lot. You're covering cases, administrative work. If you have to meet with patients, depending on the device, that's not typical, but all driving to accounts, waiting for surgeries to start. Your selling time is probably only 10, 15% of the day that you're actually selling. So it's doing all those other things that make up the rest of your day.
That's all I got for you today, Joe.
Perfect. No movie references too, man.
That's like 3 weeks in a row, dude. I'm starting to get worried.
Well, you know what it is? If it doesn't come naturally, I can't just throw them in, because some of them you make fun of me anyway. Never mind.
Make fun of you regardless. You're a Bears fan.
Right.
Your quarterback has nail polish.
Exactly. As your team is 2-10 or whatever the heck the Jets are, but that's another story. But thank you again, guys. Thank you for the questions. James, thank you for fielding all those. I appreciate it.
As
everything
always.
else you do, besides making fun of me every week. But other than that, again, guys, for all of you, you have a lot of questions, I'm sure. Reach out to me. Go on the website, RepPath.com. Schedule a call. Go on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. And let's book a call so you can learn more about the RepPath Academy. I can't stress it enough, guys. This is the way to really break into this industry and really stand out from the rest of your competition. So check that out, RepPath.com, or go to my LinkedIn and DM me. Again, anything, if you want to see a copy of this recording today, go to Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching on YouTube. And for any of you guys out there that are lobby members, make sure you give the promo code Licata, Licata, and that'll get you additional discounts both to the Academy and also to any other training that we do at RepPath. But I want to thank you guys again. Thank you, James. As always, guys, we'll be doing these every Monday and Wednesday. So our next podcast is Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. Have a great week, guys. Thank you.